Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Rita. I hope you all are doing well today. So we are going to talk about a news story that has been all over the interweb, social media, mainstream media, and it is about a woman, Micah Miller, who unfortunately took her own life. And she was the wife of Pastor John Paul Miller of a church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina called Solid Rock Ministries Church. This was a sad, sad story. Not the reason we all even, I think, know about this story is because the pastor, the day after she passed away, did an entire sermon at the church, and it wasn't until after his sermon that he decided it'd be a great idea to casually share that his wife was deceased. After which all sorts of allegations of abuse by the pastor, obviously toward his wife. So starting off, I'm gonna go over a post that one of the members, I'm not sure if she's still a member or an ex-member, but a post that a woman put on social media, I believe it's Facebook, about the whole situation. We watched a grown man groom a youth member for years. We watched him take absolutely everything from her. We watched him destroy her mentally. We watched him destroy his own family during the process. We've watched him play God over a congregation for over a decade. He is a true wolf in sheep's clothing. He has stayed untouchable. He has put himself at the top of everything. He has gotten away with all of his wrongdoings. I am so sorry, Micah Miller. You deserved better. You deserved our help and our love. I will carry this guilt forever, knowing I should have done so much more. I can't change the past, but I will not stay quiet any longer. To all of the old SRM members, I hope you feel the same. Enough is enough. We have to bring this man down from the pulpit. # justice for Micah. Again, very, very sad. Also sad that this woman talks about carrying the guilt for having allowed, or watch all of this go on and not said anything. But before we jump the gun and are too harsh on this woman and maybe other members of this church like her, so what we are going to talk about today is not so much the details of the case and all of that stuff, because I think that's been hashed and rehashed all over again. It is, again, a sad, sad situation. But what I want to address is what I discovered on the church's website. A doctrine, if you will, that is highly authoritarian, highly heretical. Now, the website at the time of this recording is offline. However, web archives, you can still access the website that way. I am going to put the links below so you too can access this website. I want to talk about the types of teachings that go on at this church that would have this woman say this, that would have the pastor at the end of his speech about his poor wife having passed away tell all the congregants they were not allowed to talk about it.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement.
So on their website, I found that they believe in spiritual coverings. Okay. And if you are not familiar with spiritual coverings, a doctrine birthed out of the shepherding discipleship movement, some call it heavy shepherding. It is a movement that was born out of, it is a new apostolic reformation doctrine. It was born in, or started in about in the 1970s. The reason that I'm even talking about, well, a couple reasons. One reason is beware is number one. Number two is this is particularly close to my heart because I was part of a group like this that taught these types of doctrines and saw subjugation of women and things like that within this group, within groups or so-called churches that teach this kind of thing. So this is why I'm kind of going over this. Okay, so I'm on a website now. Love this website. It's called Cristo La Verdad. And so if I'll put the links below, but basically he goes over this, or the site talks about spiritual covering and the shepherding movement. 1973, a doctrine about the need of spiritual covering or submitting to a shepherd was promoted by the shepherding movement. This movement affected many church denominations, mainly charismatics, but also Reformed, not only in America, but around the world. The teaching of spiritual covering has been blamed for various levels of authoritarian abuse, church splits, families split, etc., to the point that 2 of its early proponents left the group. So this page goes on to talk about this movement and the history and everything behind it. I also detail this on my website. I'll link that below as well, because I talk about some of these doctrines. And so on this church, this John Paul Miller pastor, on his church website, I pulled up a couple of screenshots here that I want to show you guys about spiritual authority. Much of the website is written about spiritual authority. And the reason I went over the spiritual covering thing is because he talks about how he is a spiritual covering for every member of his congregation. And all these hierarchies of coverings basically gives you a higher authority than what even the Bible would give leadership. It gives you a higher authority over not just serving in the ministry capacity, but over people's lives, over dating decisions, marital decisions, over financial decisions, things like that. That is what the doctrine of spiritual coverings allows you as a leader to do. It's very authoritarian, as we just read. So on their website, it talks about giving and receiving input. At Solid Rock, our desire is for all of our ministry leaders to remain open to input from people whom they serve in ministries. Okay, great. However, sadly though, a few rude, selfish people can cause a leader to withdraw and close themselves off. That's not biblical, but okay. And then the fact that this talks about rude, selfish people. So already the members, because we know we're talking about members, right? People in the church are being demonized for approaching leadership. So this is kind of a theme on this entire website. It's about damnation, punishment for the disobedient, for those who would go against God and his spiritual coverings. When you approach a ministry head, you are approaching a spiritual covering in your life. There are strong warnings in God's word about being a burden to your spiritual covering versus making their life a joy. Just as a side note, there are no spiritual covering teachings, and there are no teachings about having people as a spiritual covering in the Bible. Okay, that is not a teaching. Now, people who adhere to this doctrine will try to point to old text, Hebrew text, and say that there is a case for it. There is not a case for spiritual covering. They'll try to talk about marriage and the giving away of a bride, and basically do a scripture twisting in order to try to substantiate their claims that that we should have human spiritual people that are the overseers of every aspect of our life. Now, this is a prime, is fertile soil for all sorts of abuse. Again, we heard from the lady who was a member who talked about having seen all of the abuses go on. Nobody said anything. But the reason nobody said anything is because, and I really hope you guys do, if you take a look at this website, again, the whole website is full of how you are going to be punished by God if you approach leadership. Here's another little part. And he says, the members are not allowed to give suggestions, even to other members, or unless they ask permission. So it says here, did you ask permission to give a suggestion? At SRM, we teach all of our people ARP. ARP stands for Advice Requires Permission. So you're not allowed to give advice, have a conversation. This was something that I was told, ironically, my husband and I were told in the cult that we were a part of. We were told that we were not allowed to talk to or counsel in any way or whatever a younger couple that had questions without their permission, or without at least them knowing what we were going to be talking about what our counsel was going to be, and we would have to show them. It was the whole thing. So again, the group I belonged to believed in this type of authoritarian dictatorship. But this is the type of thing that comes along with the teaching, the doctrines of spiritual covering, is abuse and overreach into not just their spouses, or not just their members' lives, but often it filters out to the spouse first. Are you a taker or a giver? This ministry leader gives to you 10 times more to you than you give to them. Can you name at least 5 separate times that you went out of your way to appreciate and serve this ministry leader before giving even one suggestion? That's on the website. So see, I don't think I need to read any more from this person's website to let you know that this individual is an authoritarian. I am so sad for everything that happened. I am so sad for this man's wife, who was allegedly living under all sorts of abuses, allegedly, mental, emotional, spiritual, and it's just, I pray that God had mercy on her in this situation. But I just want to say, steer clear of churches who talk about spiritual coverings and who are constantly driving home this idea of spiritual authority. Sadly, a lot of people fall victim to it and cannot see a way out. I personally know of people who were raptured up in this stuff very quickly, young people who were hurriedly married off and had children and are now, if they want to leave, are in a position where, what do I do? Run away from these people. They will cause misery. They will cause you to go down a road of destruction, depression, and damnation. They are false teachers. They are heretics. The Christian church is largely doesn't seem to be aware of the shepherding discipleship bit. And I think because it doesn't have all the pomp, but this shepherding thing has been growing and ruining people's lives and even taking people's lives over the course of, like I said, decades. Kip McKean's group, International Church of Christ, similar, the shepherding discipleship, spiritual coverings, all that stuff. He is now under litigation for, of course, as you might guess, different abuses and such. I digress. I just wanted to come on here and point out and talk about that story with Micah Miller and Pastor John Paul Miller, because under this type of teaching, it is not uncommon to see that women have been abused. I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to warn people to stay away from groups that teach this kind of thing. Anyway, until next time, ciao. God bless.